good deeds. For more than a century, they've been helping communities and campaigning on a range of different issues. And never was their support more appreciated than by British servicemen during the Second World War. Well, the Stanhoe Barwick WI in West Norfolk have recently discovered a number of old letters from soldiers thanking the group for the Christmas gifts they'd been sent. So the lady has set about returning those letters to the men's families. Here to tell us more this morning are Valerie Robson, the group's secretary, and fellow member Nicola Smith. Good morning, both.
Morning.
Now, Valerie, I understand this has been quite an emotional journey for you, hasn't it?
Well, it has really, because I've been writing lots of letters, obviously speculatively, hoping that I'm going to find the families of these gentlemen. But nevertheless, when somebody turns up on your doorstep and says, I think it's my brother that you're talking about, it rather takes your breath away. And I've had one lady sitting in my kitchen in tears holding her father's letter, and that rather got me going as well, I have to say.
I'm not surprised, Nicola, because it is a really emotional moment, because it's real. You can go to
right.
any number of museums or any numbers of monuments, but actually having something incredibly personal like a letter is something really different, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And to have the original letters was really amazing when we found them in the archive. So Valerie took it really upon herself to set about and try and find the relatives of these people. Excuse me.
How did this all begin then?
Well, we celebrate our 100 years this year. We're just one of 6 Norfolk WIs that have got that far. One of our ladies decided to go through our archive, which is quite extensive, to write a short history for us, found these letters. Then our vice president suggested it might be a good idea if we tried to find a member of the family, and somehow or other I ended up doing that.
There's always a moment like that, isn't it, where you go, I feel I'm being volunteered for this.
Yes.
I can feel this, yes.
So that's how it all started. Some of it was quite easy. A couple of the families are still local families, so locating the first 2 was easy and handing back the letters. But then after that, it got to be rather more of a search. So it's happened through all sorts of things. A friend of mine has helped online to look at electoral roll and this kind of thing. As I said, I've just randomly looked up the name in the telephone book and written letters and hoped that I might find the right family. That's happened. And on one occasion, just Googling a gentleman's name actually brought up his death notice from a local newspaper, which had the funeral director's name on it. So I wrote to them and explained what I was doing, asked if they'd pass on the letter to the family, which they did. And hey presto, they phoned me, and another one found.
Very lucky indeed. And just to receive those, Nicola, and to see what your relatives have written, that must have changed the connection for people.
It did, very much. It became real. It became real for us. That sense of community as well was something that was really important. And one of the things that Valerie discovered as well, that it was actually my grandmother who was secretary at the time
I was going to say, because you've got a real family connection with this, haven't you?
Yeah. She was the one that had actually sent the letters out, and in the main had received the thank yous back. And yes, I'm 4th generation for Stanhoe Barwick WI, and my great-grandmother was integral in founding the WI for us.
How fantastic.
So that was a lovely connection when I looked at the letters and saw that it was my grandmother that had sent them out. That was really special.
I was about to say, that must have been really, really lovely for you and for the rest of the family.
Yes, definitely. Yes.
And when it came to, as you said, quite difficult in actually finding people, Valerie, but that moment, and you talked earlier about the lady who sat in your kitchen and cried, very emotional for some people.
Yes.
to find that connection.
Yes, I mean these letters weren't something any of them knew anything about. A lot of them didn't actually know anything about the wartime service of their parents, brother, or whoever it was. Let alone know anything about the letter that had been written. So actually to be holding something written by your father all those years ago was quite something.
So now that this has sort of happened, what are you hoping to do with it? Because you kind of feel that I kind of want this to go somewhere as a work, and I realise what I'm saying that might mean more work for you.
Yeah, that's potentially the scary bit. I've got as far as what we intended, sending the letters back to most of the people. There's still 2 missing, which is what we're about today, hopefully. We're just going to keep copies in our archive with a folder of what I found out about. I mean, it could go much further, but I don't think it's another WI film.
But it's and I think back to we ran letters from Samuel Leighton Green, who wrote back to his parish in the First World War about life on the front line. And they were incredibly powerful letters, and they really changed my own perspective on the war and what it was like for that. So you don't want this history to die in a lot of ways, I'm guessing, do you? You want to keep this somehow alive.
Yes, that's true. I mean, some of the letters are very much, as you can imagine, someone being taught in school to write a letter. But others of them are very personal. One man is writing from his ship and apologising for his bad handwriting because the ship's in bad weather. And another gentleman is talking about they celebrated Christmas late because they were a bit busy, which, you can only imagine what that meant during the wartime. So, yeah, they're interesting from that point of view. And if they could somehow have a wider audience, that would be great. But quite how we achieve that, I don't know.
We're not sure, no.
Well, that's an exciting bit, though, Nicola, I guess, is that there is now this chance to say, OK, we now know all of this. What could we do in terms of making this something to ensure that people can not necessarily read them, but actually still be able to connect with that part of history?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we've had them on display at the Norfolk Federation House at one of their events. And obviously it's been our centenary year, so they've been on display